All right, not that we're counting, but there are 27 days until President Barack Obama moves out of the White House and President-elect Donald Trump moves in. And what started as a smooth transition of power now seems a little rocky as Trump speaks out on the recent Obama administration decision to abstain on the UN vote regarding Israeli settlements. Here to weigh in, Fox News contributor Jillian Turner, who served as staff on the White House National Security Council under the Bush and Obama administration, and obviously a huge friend of the show. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Merry Christmas.
So Merry Christmas to you. Before we get to the transition, because I certainly have a lot of questions, I want to bring up sort of the news of the weekend that we've been talking about. We've seen critics of President-elect Donald Trump for weighing in on foreign policy, and then we have some who are saying, listen, he's reassuring our allies, he is setting the stage, he is setting the tone. Where do you fall in between those 2 points of view?
So I think that somewhere in the middle, meaning I think that, President-elect Trump has a mandate. He's going to be the commander-in-chief in less than a month. So he's certainly allowed to voice his opinions on matters, especially of foreign policy, because of all the policy that a president makes, foreign policy is really his domain. It's his prerogative to set the tone for our relations with other countries. But at the same time, he wants to, I think, that he also has an obligation to President Obama or whoever the sitting president may be at any given time.
To not step on his toes, if you will.
Exactly. To not undermine his policy while he's still the commander-in-chief. So I think it's okay for Donald Trump to speak out, but I don't think it's appropriate for him to start negotiating with other countries. I think it's too early for that.
And I also think that we need to keep in mind that sometimes the headlines are consumed by cabinet picks, and that people maybe then make hypotheticals, and they say, well, that's what this person is going to do, that's what this person is going to do, and not necessarily are they engaging in policy, but people make that. It's a 24-hour news cycle. So should people be focusing on the decisions that he's making, and then what can they interpret from the cabinet picks that he's making right now?
Well, I think everything that the Trump transition team has done so far on national security and foreign policy signals major change. Everything from how we project military power abroad to how we deal with the nuclear question to how we negotiate with allies and how hard a line we take when it comes to negotiating trade deals with them and that kind of a thing. So I think that it's not a news flash to any American that U.S. foreign policy is undergo a major transformation pretty shortly here, and so I think that most of his cabinet picks have signaled that, and he himself says things all the time that really indicate change is coming.
But there are certain assumptions that some are making that they shouldn't. And for example, we've seen obviously a number of generals, maybe more so than we have in administrations past, getting named to either being a cabinet or an advisor, and people immediately think that that means it's going to be a very hawkish administration. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. I think that there's a lot of misperception about military officers serving in policy positions, and I've spent the last 10 years working for senior military folks who are now in policy-making positions. And the one really important thing I've learned is that these are folks who have personally, firsthand, either paid the price or seen friends and people that they work with pay the ultimate price, and because of that are actually more likely to be cautious when it comes to using military force around the world, putting boots on the ground, which is an expression I don't really like. But I think the assumption that they're hawkish is really misguided, and so I think that the idea that because we have generals in cabinet positions, we are going to start, instigating wars in regions of the world where we're not now is a fallacy. Yeah.
We only have about 30 seconds left, but I do want to get to the point that you've been involved in a transition. So can you tell me one of the biggest challenges as you do make that move, make that transition?
I think the biggest challenge for any new administration working through the last one is managing the first 1 to 3 months of the new administration, because things are so chaotic and disorganized, and there's so much institutional knowledge that floods out of the White House and new people that come in who don't have experience, that I think really trying to manage our security needs during that time is the most challenging. So I think we need to be more vigilant than ever about, or the government needs to be more vigilant than ever about preventing terrorist attacks and preventing Americans being targets.
Right. Jillian Turner, thank you so much. Really neat insight. We appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas.